Hey everyone, this is going to be algebra homework from Unit 8, lesson number 6. It's called the zeros of a quadratic. Hopefully everyone's doing all right. Hopefully you're finding these helpful if you're watching them. So here goes Unit 8, lesson 6, zeros of a quadratic. Alright, so this is the zeros of a quadratic. Number 1, the roots of x squared minus 6x minus 16 equals 0 can be found by factoring as, so it says by factoring, so let's do the factoring first. Couple ways to do this. We got x squared minus 6x minus 16. One way as like a visual is if we make something that looks like this. We know this square would be x squared, down here would be minus 16. So these two have to multiply to give us x squared, so x times x. We would need two things that multiply to give us minus 16, and then these two would have to combine to make minus 6x, or just minus 6. So think of two numbers we need to multiply to give us 16 and put together to make minus 6. So 16, we've got 1 times 16, 2 times 8, and 4 times 4. If you look at those, now remember we can use positives and negatives. Looks like this one, if we use 2 and 8, we could multiply to get 16 and then somehow combine to make a 6. So one's going to be a 2, one's going to be an 8. So that would make this 8x, this would make 2x, and we need to make minus 6x. So if I make this a minus 8, that makes this a minus 8x, which would make this combined to make a minus 6x. So this would have to be a plus 2. So right here and here are the factored forms. So we get x minus 8 times x plus 2 equals 0. Another way to do it, x squared minus 6x minus 16. Start with your sets of parentheses. You know these are going to be x's because it's an x squared at the beginning. So we could kind of read it going backwards. Two numbers that multiply to give us 16 and subtract to give us 6. So 8 and 2, 8 times 2 is 16, 8 minus 2 is 6, and then you got to figure out, okay, positives and negatives. Well, I need a minus 6x, so the larger one's got to be minus. This would have to be plus, because if this were also a minus, it wouldn't combine to make minus 6x, and it also wouldn't multiply to give us minus 16. Remember, a negative or a minus times a minus is a positive, or a negative times a negative is a positive. In any case, so either way you want to do it, one's a little more visual, one's a little more step-based. The more practice you get, probably the closer you'll get to this one. But in any case, now what this means is that you got to think of these as two numbers that multiply to give us 0. So what that means is that either x minus 8 has to be 0, or x plus 2 has to be 0, or both of them do, because anything times 0 is 0. So that means that if we add 8, that means that x could be 8, or x could be negative 2. If either of those are true, then this times this equals 0. Okay, if it's 8, 8 minus 8 is 0, and 0 times whatever that happens to be is 0. Or, if that's negative 2, then whatever x minus 8 turns out to be times 0 is 0, or if they're both 0, then obviously they're going to be 0. In any case, so the answer is number 3, negative 2 and 8. So notice they use these curly Q, I think they're called braces, not parentheses, because we're not listing a point, we're listing solutions. So down here, basically what this is saying, it's already factored, that either this is 0, or x plus 7 is 0, or both. So to solve this, okay, we're going to add 3 we get 2x is equal to 3, and then divide by 2. So one of our answers could be, now I'm going to leave it as 3 halves. Okay, 3 divided by 2, 3 halves. And then over here I'm going to subtract 7 to get x equal negative 7. So our two answers could be either 3 halves or negative 7. So it can't be 4, it can't be 2, because it doesn't have negative 7 in there. And then I know my copy got a little chopped up here, but that's 1.5, which is also 3 halves. Right down here, just to kind of show you that you can do these on a calculator. I know it says by factoring, but here, let's just take a look at the calculator. If you go to y equals, and you type in, let's do x squared minus 36, you could look at the graph, but what you're looking for is at the table, okay, where is the y value 0, or what x value is it when y is 0? So we've got x equals 6. And I think we'd have to go all the way down here. Yep. And negative 6. Okay, so you're looking for where the y values are 0, and then these corresponding x value. A lot easier to do on a calculator, but it does say to factor. So for these, I'm going to just kind of go fast. So again, you can do the visual. You could do it this way. I'm going to just kind of go through the answers. This is a difference of two perfect squares. 36 is 6 times 6. And with the difference of two perfect squares, one's going to be plus, one's going to be minus. That works out that way because the middle term, the terms, would cancel out to make 0. That's why there's no x term here. In any case, so we're going to set each of these equal to 0. So that means our answer could either be negative 6 or 6, like you saw on the calculator. Calculator is a good way to check also to see if you're doing things right. Over here, x, I need two numbers that multiply to give us 27, add to give us 12. So 9 and 3. I need to combine to make positive 12. So I'm going to take each of those, set them equal to 0. So negative 9 and negative 3. Alright, 3x squared plus 5x minus 2. So I know one's going to be 3x, one's going to be x. These I have to do some kind of guessing and checking. So I might, let me switch to my pencil here. What if this is 2 and this is 1? And make this positive, make this negative. Let's see if that works out. 3x squared plus 6x minus x minus 2. Yep, so those are the two equals 0. So 3x minus 1 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. Again, I know I'm going fast, but I'm just solving the equation. So either x equals 1/3. If you do that on a calculator, you're going to get 0.3 repeating. I'd keep it as 1/3, and then negative 2. For this one, I might divide by 10 first, or I could factor out an x. So they both have an x, at least one. They both have a 10 as well, at least 1, 10. So we could also say that this is 2x minus 1. 10x equals 0, or 2x minus 1 equals 0. So that means either x is 0 or x is 1/2. Alright, down here. Again, I'm going to switch to pencil just because I might have to guess and check. I need minus 21, so 5x and 2x. Three, 7. I think that should work. 10x squared, x minus 14x minus 21. So yeah. So then I'm going to take each of these, set it equal to 0, 2x plus 3 equals 0. If you still need to do the line down the equal sign, you could do that. We'll just up a little. Add 7, and then divide by 5. And again, I just keep it 7/5. So 2x equals negative 3 halves. All right, over here, what I would do first is divide everything by 4. Even the 0, which I know 0 divided by 4 is 0, but so you get x squared minus 4x minus 21. Two numbers that multiply to give us 21, subtract to give us 4, 7 and 3. They have to be, this would have to be minus, this would have to be plus. So our answers would either be 7 or negative 3. Now again, I would probably type these into the calculator and find those. Some are going to be tough to find because they're fractions. There's a way to do it on the graph. Maybe in a separate video I'll show you how to do that. It's a little more, so maybe I'll keep that in mind here. Alright, next page. Consider the function x squared minus 4x minus 5. Use your calculator to graph the function on the grid provided. Alright, let's do that. So y equals, clear it, x squared minus 4x minus 5. So I'm going to go to table. Alright, so I've got negative 2, 7. Negative 1, 0. 0, negative 5. 1, negative 8. Then it kind of starts mirroring itself, so skip a few steps. Whoop. Should probably label it y equals x squared minus 4x minus 5. Alright, so check. Got that done. State the zeros of the function by inspecting the graph, circle their location. So the zeros are where it crosses the x-axis. So state the zeros. So when it's x equals negative 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Algebraically by factoring. Verify that your answers match B. So x squared minus 4x minus 5. We're going to see where does that equal 0. So we're going to factor x, 5, 1, minus and a plus. Hey, what do you know? They're the same even when we do it algebraically. Alright. A baking soda rocket is fired upwards with initial speed of 80 feet per second. Its height h above the ground in feet can be modeled using the equation h of t equals negative 16t squared plus 80t. T is the time since launch in seconds. At what time, when t is greater than 0, does the rocket hit the ground? Find algebraically. So if this is the height, then where it hits the ground, the height would be 0. So negative 16t squared plus 80t, we want to figure out when does that equal 0. So we're going to they each have a t. We're going to factor out a t. And I think they each have a 16. Right? 16 times 5 is 80. And just so I'm going to do a little fancy footwork here. I'm going to actually take out the minus 16 so that what we have left here, if we do negative 16t squared divided by negative 16t, we're left with t And then 80t divided by negative 16t, we get minus 5. Those would cancel. Minus 5 equals 0. Alright, so if we set each of these, so this piece, I'm not dividing, sorry, this piece equal to 0. So it's going to hit the ground at 0 seconds, but we're talking about after 0 seconds. So basically it starts at the ground, 0, alright, and we're looking for that one, which is going to be given by this t minus 5 equals 0. So it's going to be after 5 seconds. Alright, so it's asking, can you determine why they have the same solutions? So if you take a look through the second one, this has a 3 as its coefficient. This is 21 where this is 7. This is 36 where this is 12. Basically, these have the same solutions because it's basically this one times 3. And so even though you're multiplying by 3, it's still going to go through the same zeros if you were to graph it. You could test that on a calculator if you wanted to. You could completely factor and see why. But essentially, one's just multiplied by 3. All right, hope everyone's doing all right. You can send me a message if you need to. Let me know if these are helping.